asked, we will not be able to hear the questions, so I may have to repeat those if we have some questions, just for folks that may view this at a later date. But this is a Skilled Trades Training Fund for fiscal 18. And welcome. My name is David Rose. I'm the Business Service Manager for GST Michigan Works, and I'll be doing the orientation. And it's my goal, hopefully, to keep everyone awake and not to put you asleep at your desk. But this is content specific, and in some instances I would call it death by PowerPoint. But I hope to enough information here to keep everybody's attention. Just as a word at the beginning, all Skilled Trades Training Fund applications are submitted through our Michigan Works system. In our Region 6, it's GST Michigan Works, and we submit the applications on behalf of companies. Before we can send a company an application, there is a requirement that we conduct a fact-finding with the business prior to sending you an application. And wanted to let you know who GST Michigan Works is, just briefly. GST Michigan Works, we're the reemployment arm of the state of Michigan. We work with job seekers to help them understand why they're not qualified for jobs and assist them to become qualified and employable and to find work. And at the same time, at the other side of our house, we work directly with employers to help them find talent who are already qualified for positions that they may have in openings. As GST Michigan Works, we serve 6 counties, and we serve Genesee, Shiawassee, Lapeer, Tuscola, Huron, and Sanilac counties. And at the end of this presentation, we will have information as to who to contact for any of the business service representatives by county. All of our services at GST Michigan Works are prepaid, and they're not free because we're not free, but they are prepaid, but they are offered to all businesses at no charge and all employers. The Skilled Trades Training Fund began back in 2013, so we're in the fourth year of supporting the Skilled Trades Training Fund, and it was the Governor's New Jobs Creation Program. And there's been over 30,000 people that have been trained since 2013. And a number of apprentices have been put aboard, and a number of folks have been trained in a number of different types of occupations. Just as a word about the Skilled Trades Training Fund, it's not only for jobs that we consider or think of as skilled trades. The jobs also include any job in your company, and it also includes all sectors. Those sectors are not limited to agriculture, energy, healthcare, IT, and manufacturing. It can include any position within a company, from an administrative assistant to a welder to a plumber pipe fitter, to all of those things that we think of as traditional skilled trades. Can also be any of your IT positions, any of your skilled nursing positions, etc. So don't let the name Skilled Trades Training Fund focus you only on what you think of as, and we've always thought of as, skilled trades. That's just the name of the program. It's open to all jobs in all sectors with all companies. In the past, at least this past year, in 2017, GST was able to secure over $1.1 million for area businesses to help train and upskill folks within our region. Broken down by region, we brought in helped businesses bring over $570,000 in Genesee County, over $146,000 in Huron County, Lapeer County over $26,000, in Sanilac County over $70,000, in Shiawassee County over $142,000, and Tuscola County over $141,000. So that's well over $1.1 million that came into our area this past fiscal year. The coming new fiscal year, there was $10 million the fund started out with in 2013. Last year it had as much as $20 million. This year it's going to be up to $29 million. And of that $29 million, over $27 million will be available directly to employers. The application period for employers begins this Monday, which is September 18th. It will be open for 3 weeks, and it will close on October 6th, which is a Friday, and it will close at 5 p.m. on that day. The applications, they're statewide, so these are competitive funds, and there will be competitive scoring with all of these submitted applications. And the Workforce Development Agency will disperse the funds until they are exhausted. We do expect demand to exceed supply again this year. It has every year, and they will announce the awards in November. Applications to us as a Michigan Works agency have to be turned into us during that grant period, which is September 18th through October 6th. And to ensure that the application is accurate and competitive, we need your application sent, and it's not to me. I haven't changed that slide. You'll see who it needs to be sent to. They end up with me, but what I do is I make sure that the companies work with an individual business service representative from GST Michigan Works, and they're due to them on or before 5 p.m. on October 6th. To be an eligible business, you must be a private or nonprofit. Governmental agencies and institutions are not eligible. You must be in compliance with all your state and federal tax obligations. You must have a Michigan presence. These are state of Michigan funds, by the way. These are not federal funds. You must demonstrate a need for training, and you can apply. If you have businesses in multiple sites, you can complete one application for each site, or you must complete one application for each site. And funding is not guaranteed for all sites if you do complete multiple applications. To be considered for an award, you are expected as a business to be actively involved in the design and planning of your project, and that you're paying wages that are equal to or greater than the prevailing wage of the local labor market in our region. If there's a question about that, we will help you determine that. You can also be part of what has been referred to in the past as a consortium application, and you can be part of an independent application. So you could actually have 2 applications submitted for skilled trades training funds. And a consortium, which now has a different name, and I'll show you on the next slide, is a partnership between 2 or more companies for the same type of training. We now call them industry-led collaboratives. The one thing about an industry-led collaborative consortium is that applications will be accepted throughout the year for them, so you do not have to turn those in by the October 6th date. The state will accept collaborative applications throughout the year, but individual applications must be submitted by on or before October 6th. So an employer could be part of both. It could have an independent application and be part of an industry-led collaborative. Also, for those companies, and I know some of the companies on our line have had an STTF grant during 2017. Everyone, with one exception, we've closed out their awards, but at any given time, we have to close out your prior year skilled trades training grant before we're allowed to allow you to apply for another year. In our region, we're working with one company, so and that company knows who they are. For those that have been part of the skilled trades training fund in the past, last year there was not a queue. This year the queue is back, and what that means is that once all of the applications have been submitted, they're unable to normally fund all those applications. They will put all the unfunded applications in a queue, ranked and rated by score, and as monies become available, because quite often monies are not spent by the companies, they will go back to the queue, and many times we've been contacted in January or February to ask if Acme Construction would consider, we did not fund their application initially, but we would like to fund it now, and they have an application in for maybe $50,000, and we have $30,000 available. Are they interested in funding? And then we work as a Michigan Works agency with that company to see whether or not they're still interested in the funds. So that's what the queue is, and the queue is now back for this year. and the applications not funded are held by the Talent Investment Agency. You'll hear me say the Workforce Development Agency. I'm used to saying WDA. Allowable training providers for you as businesses, there's very few restrictions. You can pick just about anyone that you feel confident in to do the training. That include Michigan community colleges, universities, private training providers, any proprietary school that's licensed by the state of Michigan. You as a business can only do your own training if you can show supporting rationale in your application that it's exclusive in nature and not available anywhere else or be able to be provided by anyone else. And that could be that you do training in your company, that you have a patented process and no one else does that training. We can talk about how you could have the training provided through the Skilled Trades Training Fund and your instructor be paid to conduct that training. But we do have to support or provide supporting rationale as to why that is exclusive in nature. Also, any of your vendors that provide training to operate your equipment or any of your systems are also eligible to be training providers. So there's very few restrictions on training providers. The trainees, which would be your incumbent workers for the most part, would be anyone that's state residency this year is not a factor. It has been in the past. To determine, however, who is eligible, there is a litmus test for that. All trainees the companies must be contributing to the Michigan Unemployment Compensation Fund for that individual for them to be eligible. So a person could be working for a company and working in another state, for example, as part of the Michigan company, as long as the Michigan company is paying into Michigan's unemployment compensation for that individual, they are eligible. If the company is not paying into the state of Michigan for that individual, then they are not eligible. Also, the employers must have paid in full all your taxes and your tax obligations. And we also need to ensure that you're authorized to work in the United States, and these are for permanent full-time employees. And permanent full-time employees within the Skilled Trades Training Fund would be those employees that are working 32 hours a week or more. So part-time seasonal folks are not eligible for training with companies with these funds, nor are temporary employees. If you are working, if your company contracts with individuals through a 1099, they basically, for the most part, are not eligible because they're independent contractors and not working for your company. They must be on your payroll is the easiest way to make that differentiation. Also, within the Skilled Trades Training Fund, you could forecast new employees. They will be eligible, and I'll talk about that in a little while, but they must be 18 years of age and older, must be full-time, permanent, which is 32 hours a week or more upon hire, so seasonal and part-time employees are not eligible. It is expected that the trainee, any of your employees, are a suitable match for you, especially those that you forecast to bring in through what we call work-based learning on-the-job training. If we're forecasting new employees, and I'll talk about how that can be done, we want to make sure we expect that they have the academic skills to successfully complete training, and the trainee is expected to be committed to complete the training as well. Sometimes some of our companies have secured a Skilled Trades Training Fund, but the employees aren't on board or understand quite what it is, so it's a good thing for our employers to bring the employees up to speed that these are funds that you're receiving as a company to help upskill your present workforce, to build capacity, and hopefully be able to take on new work and hire new individuals. But it's really about capacity building and helping to keep our companies healthy. This year is new. There is an incentive for hiring veterans. Any veteran that you hire or train, you will be given a $500 bonus for. Otherwise, through the Skilled Trades Training Fund, you can be reimbursed up to $1,500. And that is $1,500 for an on-the-job training, or for classroom training. It's the maximum. To get the additional $500 when you train or upskill a veteran, what we have to have when we do the billing is a copy of their DD-214, which is their discharge, their honorable discharge papers. The exception to that is apprenticeships, and we'll talk a little bit about apprenticeships later. Those are USDOL registered apprenticeships. You can receive up to $3,000 for a USDOL registered apprenticeship for a combination of work-based learning, RTI, and classroom. And then if this person happens to be a veteran, you can also get an extra $500 bonus by presenting a DD-214 for them, and that is new for 2018. There's also emphasis by the state of Michigan for companies to hire folks from targeted populations. And those are folks that are considered veterans, individuals with disabilities, returning citizens, and older workers that are 55 years of age and older. The targeted populations, if you have a recruitment policy that you're targeting them, then you'll get some additional points on your application. And I'll talk about that in a little while. But the application is competitively scored, is worth 100 points, and you will get additional points if you have criteria for targeting for targeted populations. New this year is that training is available for MAT Squared, and that is the Michigan Advanced Technician Training Program through the state of Michigan. If you have a MAT Squared grant, you simply cannot double dip on it and charge off the same charges for one individual, but you could have a MAT Squared grant and train other folks in MAT Squared through the Skilled Trades Training Fund. Also new this year is that English as a second language is fundable. In the past it has not been. We have had companies that wanted to train folks, for example, in Spanish, so they would have some more Spanish-speaking individuals working in their company or corporation. In the past, we could not fund that. This year, we can fund that. That is fundable and reimbursable. Allowable training within the Skilled Trades Training Fund, you need to be able to demonstrate that your individuals and talent, that it's a demonstrated need that you have within your company, that you need to build capacity, that you need folks upskilled so that you can increase capacity of your company, take on new work, and hopefully hire new individuals. The classroom training must lead to a credential that's transferable. And the best way to think about that is that if a person goes to the training, at skilled training, and you have a downturn, for example, and lay them off, that the training that they go through during the Skilled Trades Training Fund would help them to obtain employment with another company. We have three types of training I talked about a little bit here. Classroom training for current employees or individuals to be hired. On-site training with wage reimbursement. Any of our companies that have worked with us in the past, we refer to that as an on-the-job training agreement or an OJT. And then their USDOL registered apprenticeships are the third types of training that are reimbursable with the Skilled Trades Training Fund. Classroom training, you can receive up to $1,500 an individual. On-site wage reimbursement or an OJT cannot exceed $1,500. And if you have a combination thereof, well, if you have a current employee, you can't receive an OJT because they're already working for you. But a new USDOL registered apprenticeship, you can receive up to $3,000. And once again, if that individual happens to be a veteran, you will receive an additional $500 stipend. And again, the USDOL registered apprenticeship training could be for a brand new employee coming aboard. It could also be for a new employee that you happen to have a USDOL registered apprenticeship, and you're bringing a current employee who is not an apprentice or not a journey worker. You're bringing them as maybe they've worked with you for 5 years, and now you're going to bring them into an apprenticeship. They are eligible to receive monies. You're eligible to receive monies for training them up to $3,000 as a registered apprentice. Again, allowable training must fill a documented talent need by an eligible one of your participants, in other words, one of your full-time workers. Must lead to full-time employment if, in fact, that is a person that you're forecasting to hire through an OJT, for example. And it can include classroom training, OJTs, any of your incumbent workers, or a USDOL registered apprenticeship. Examples of that is welding, CNC operators, CNC programmers, blueprint reading, just about any type of skill training that you may have a need for with any of your employees. Safety training, however, is questionable at times. Any kind of basic safety training is not fundable, such as MIOSHA overview or lockout tagout is not allowable training because it's introductory training and it's an overview. However, MIOSHA 10, which is approximately 30 hours of training, that can be allowable dependent upon the rationale. And when you're going to be asked as a company to write a rationale as to why the state should assist you with these trainings. So if it's safety training beyond basic training, then it can very possibly be allowable, and our business service reps will work with you to figure that out. Lean training can be acceptable, provided that it is not introductory lean training. For example, black or green belt is preferred as long as we have supporting personnel that you have an overall lean strategy within your business, and so that's fundable and always has been. Anything basically that's competency based or anything with a hands-on component is for the most part fundable. General overview is not fundable, and that Skill Trades Training Fund will also not cover consulting services. A general overview, for example, it comes up all the time, Microsoft Word, Excel, Access. The introductory class is not fundable, but if you have present employees that are working for you that may need intermediate or advanced Excel or Word or Access, those are fundable types of trainings that can be included with your STTF grant. On-site wage reimbursement for individuals, those are OJTs. Those are basically work-based learning, and that would be training to help an individual that you're about to hire as they come in, and you would forecast how many people in your application that you intend to hire over a 3 to 4 month period, and we can assist with an on-the-job training agreement with you, and you can be reimbursed for up to $1,500 for that individual. Please note, however, that individuals that are hired must be after the application has been approved, so that, and before training has started, so that if you're bringing people aboard in September and October, the Skill Trades Training Fund will not fund those individuals. It will only fund individuals who are brought aboard with your company after the state awards the funds to you, and they're very specific about the date range of the award. Funding is meant to be short-term trainings, typically 3 months, 3 to 4 months. Training should not exceed 6 months. At a minimum, one of your trainings, and I realize a lot of times we're projecting trainings, need to begin no later than February 9th of 2018. And if we have classroom trainings and OJTs, especially the on-the-job training, work-based learning retention period, which is 90 days, those should be completed no later than August 1st of 2018. And if you're awarded a grant, the state is asking you to expedite training as soon as possible after the grant has been awarded. 4 to 6 weeks is preferred. at any given time, and we realize businesses, things change in business every day, and it's very difficult to predict week to week, let alone month to month or year to year. But if we need to make modifications to a grant that's been approved, that's not a problem whatsoever. But the modifications need to be approved in advance. We have a modification form and a modification process, and I need you to work with your BSP to identify that. They'll work with me, and I'm the one that submits all your applications and paperwork and modifications to the state of Michigan. And we can get that done. We've been doing it all the time, and I've been working with businesses since 2013 on these, since the inception of the Skilled Trades Training Fund. One of the things we need to pay attention to this year is that for work-based learning, or OJTs, that you are projecting that you're going to be hiring new folks. We just simply report them as a job title, and as you fill those positions, we need to know and report to the state the names of the people that are filling those positions by the 20th of each month. And that is something that the state has let us know they're going to pay very close attention to this coming year, because in the past there's been a number of OJT, work-based learnings, jobs that companies did not hire people for, just because business, things happen, things change, business changes. But they're going to stay on top of that very, very closely, because they want to spend this money and they want to redistribute it to companies that maybe were not funded, so that if any given time you realize you're not going to be able to utilize some of your funds, then we ask you to notify us very, very rapidly, so that we can put a modification into the state of Michigan so that they could reissue your unexpended funds. So that's very important to us. And in many, many cases, it's helped us get other companies funded during the year. This is simply an example of a Skilled Trades Training Fund modification form. All of our application forms are all fully electronic, so this is simply a Word document that you can simply go in, and we fill in the information, and then everything is done electronically between you, GST Michigan Works, and GST Michigan Works in the state of Michigan. I've already gone over the employer expectations. The one thing that I will note, skilled trades training funds are not intended for low-wage, high-turnover occupations, and that if you are awarded a skilled trades training fund grant, that grant flows through GST Michigan Works. So we have a very simple 2-page document that we would ask you to enter into between us as a training agreement, and all it does is restate the conditions of the skilled trade training fund dollars. One of the things that you'll be asked to do as a business is that if you are awarded a fund, or a skilled trades training fund award, is to share the outcomes and success and the impact stories. These monies are voted on every year by your state legislature, and they're the ones that have approved the $29 million. And the only way that they find out that what are the successes, what are the things that have occurred that were wonderful for their area companies, is for us to report them to the state on your behalf. So if you're awarded a grant, one of our business service reps that works with you will come to you and ask you to have you share at least 1 to 2 outcomes and success stories that we can share with your legislators. And this information is reported also to the legislature and to the governor's office. We also ask you to utilize mytalent.org. We'll help you with an account if you don't have one. That's the state labor exchange, and anyone can register with that. And if you don't have an account, I think you're missing out. You really need an account, especially if you're looking for talent, because anyone that is a laid-off individual is required to put their information into the Michigan Talent Connect system, which is a state labor exchange. We encourage all high school graduates are encouraged to register through there. College graduates, anyone that's maybe underemployed, or anyone looking for employment has access to that and can put a profile on their resume in there for employers to view and see. It's an expectation also that you retain the employees after the completion of the training. and that you're going to be asked to contribute training to the training, whether it's cash or in kind. And I'll show you a spot on the application that you estimate that contribution. We're going to ask you if you're awarded a grant to provide required documentation to be reimbursed. I'll talk a little bit later about what that is. Again, to provide the names of the individuals who are hired on a monthly basis that would be projected, forecasted on-the-job training or new individuals. We're going to ask you at the end of the grant, one of the few things that you do, and these are Excel spreadsheets, that you simply tell us what is, if you had Dave Rose in training, he went through a training, what was his wage prior and after the training? And then we're going to ask you on a closeout of the grant after 6 months, we're simply going to ask you to go into a spreadsheet and show us and list what are the wages of those individuals that received training. And that's how the state predicts and forecasts and let the documents to the legislature that skilled trades training funds were used to upskill a number of individuals, and there was an hourly average increase in wages to Michigan residents of X numbers of dollars an hour, and that's reported to the state of Michigan. Not by company, but it's done as an average across the state, and that's where the information comes from. If you experience a layoff during the skilled trades training fund period, we ask you to let us know immediately, and maybe there's other things that we can do with incumbent worker training with federal dollars that we may be able to help do some other trainings to prevent layoffs, etc. The state legislature put out for us that obviously the skilled trades training fund was never intended to be utilized for low wage, high turnover occupations, and the individuals trained must be employees of your company. And also note that skilled trades training funds cannot and will not be used to reimburse for training that occurs prior to the Workforce Development Agency approval date of your application. So that if your grant becomes approved, and they will not be approved any earlier than November, so I caution folks to apply for training that starts mid-November on. I always use November 15th. Of course, that's the opening day of hunting season. I've always known that, but I don't hunt. But if you start somebody in September and you get approved for a grant, and the grant application approval is November 10th, anyone you hired prior to November 10th wouldn't be able to be included. However, all the classroom training is going to be for current employees, so that's not really going to affect that. That would only really affect those people that you forecasted to hire. For the most part, those would be on-the-job training folks or brand new apprentices that you would be bringing in. I'm going to take a moment to get a drink here. Are there any questions at this point? And if there are, I may repeat them because I'm taping this and my phone doesn't go through my computer, so your voice would not be taped as you ask the question. I haven't looked at them because I'm the only one doing this. And I will at the end. I can take a look at those. Oh, not gonna. Okay. I know I'm going fast, and I'll answer questions at the end. I've done this live 3 times so far, and we have, it's taken us a good hour and a half to do this. But what I'd like to do is answer questions at the end. Because as I go through these, I think a lot of questions may get answered. One more sip of water. Just a moment. Alrighty, here we go. Classroom training. Need to talk about that a little bit. Any classroom training that you believe that your present workforce needs must be conducted by a third party unless it's exclusive in nature, and I talked about that a little bit. It could be a patented process, for example. and you're the only ones that can provide that. We just need to indicate that in your application and in your narrative. It must lead to a credential, a recognizable credential. And as we look at recognizable credentials in the Skilled Trades Training Fund, that's really simply a certificate that is issued by the training provider. It does not have to be an industry recognized stackable credential. It, however, must be a training that a training provider provides that is skill-based for the most part, and the provider must provide a certificate of training at the very least for that. Training can take place at your place as a company, at your company. It can take place at the training provider, and you can also select online trainings for your employees. It can only be for current employees or those folks that are going to be hired after the STTF application is approved. So if you've got folks that you've forecasted that you're going to hire for certain positions, you can, in combination, include them in classroom training and an on-the-job training work-based learning agreement, but the maximum you're going to receive for that individual is going to be $1,500 unless they're a registered apprentice. Again, on-site wage reimbursement, when we do that, or an OJT, will come, and especially, and we work with a number of you now, but we simply have to have a master agreement in place, and then we'll come in and work with you very rapidly to put together an on-the-job training agreement where we document what kind of trainings that the person's going to receive, etc. We do 90% of the paperwork on those. This slide is simply a reiteration of what I just said, with the exception that for on-the-job training agreements within the Skilled Trades Training Fund, reimbursement for those are made 90 days after the completion of the last OJT, and you as a company will receive one check for all of the OJTs at one time. So if you've got 9 OJTs and the first one starts in the end of November and the last one starts in February, and that one in February doesn't get over with, the training is 120 hours, so it gets done with at the end of March. We've got April, May, and June for a 90-day retention period. We wouldn't be able to apply for your reimbursement for all of those until July. Hope that just made sense. So we're looking at basically 3 months after the completion of the last on-the-job training agreement for all of your OJTs at the same time. Does anyone have U.S. DOL registered apprenticeships that are on the line? Because if we don't, I won't spend a lot of time on it. There is money available for new U.S. Department of Labor registered apprentices. It's up to $3,000. And we would be more than happy to talk to you about that. But if you do have one, and there has been in the past some maybe a mix-up, the state of Michigan is part of the U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Apprenticeship approval process for registered apprentices. Half of the states go through the U.S. Department of Labor. The other half, the state themselves approve apprenticeships. We in Michigan happen to be a U.S. DOL state. And for us to know a person is a U.S. DOL registered apprentice, the RAPID system is a Registered Apprenticeship Partners Information Data System. You would be part of that, so we could get a printout of that. And there's also a new apprentice demographic form that we have to fill out. So if you have a U.S. DOL registered apprenticeship, please talk to us or your business service rep, and we'll help explain that. What I've got on the screen right now simply is that participant demographic form. And I didn't hear anybody say that they had a registered apprenticeship, so I'll move right through it. There are some trainings that are prohibited. And that is, if we cannot reimburse those companies for in-house training that's not exclusive. Adult education is not fundable. Basic computer skills, with the exception of like intermediate and advanced skills, are. Literacy classes, any language class other than English as a second language. Leadership classes are not, they are prohibited. That means leadership for supervisors, management, and lead workers. Anything that's considered a soft skills is not fundable. Those would be things like team building, customer service, telephone skills, etc. The state of Michigan does have a site that's quite good, actually. If you're looking for some soft skill kinds of training, if you go to the www.mytalent.org e-learning software soft skills program, they have some nice programs at the state level that you could have some of your folks go through for customer service and team building. And they are computerized online. Skill Trades Training Fund will not reimburse for basic lean or lean overview. They will not reimburse for wages for your current employees as they go to training. You can use that, however, as part of your contribution to the grant as in kind, but they will not reimburse wages for your employees while they attend training. They will not reimburse for 2-hour seminars or conferences or short workshops. But we need to talk about that with your business service rep, because if these are lengthy, some educational institutions will run training and it's a 30-hour seminar. That's fundable. We can make that case for that because that's not a 2-hour seminar. So if there's trainings or workshops that are very, very short in nature, they're probably not going to get funded. If they are 30-hour long extended kinds of workshops, and that just happens to be what the training provider called them, it's very possible that we can help get those funded. Skill Trades Training Fund will not pay for consulting services to improve company processes or for continuing education credits. We've already spoken about training, safety training. If it's required by your company as part of a normal cost of doing businesses, they will not reimburse for it, nor will they reimburse for subscriptions to e-learning programs for your company. At the same time, there are certain things that you can utilize as leveraged funds that can be part of your grant to show leveraged on your part as a company, but the Skill Trades Training Fund will not reimburse you for them. And that is for the purchase of tools or equipment that you've spent as a company, licensing fees that you're providing or testing fees, curriculum development, your cost to send trainees to training, and that would be hourly plus benefits plus retirement, etc. So that can be a total cost. You can factor that in as in-kind cost on your part of sending folks to training. Anything that you may pay for that's an online training subscription can be considered as part of your in-kind training that you provide for your employees throughout the year. New this year is that the state has asked for us not to submit applications that are less than $1,000, and at the same time not to invoice for reimbursement for companies in increments less than $1,000 unless it's the final invoice for the company. I want to spend a little time here because this is the scoring criteria, and it's different than 2017. And I want to point out that there's a total of 100 points that a company can receive. When we submit your application and training plan to the WDA, they have a team that goes through all of these and they score all of your grant applications. They look at your rationale, and that's worth up to 35 of 100 points. Your planned duration of training is worth up to 10 points. Your employer contribution of in-kind or cash is worth up to 20. So that's 65 of 100 points in rationale, planning duration, and employer contribution. The rest of the points you can and cannot get dependent upon the size of your company and if you've had grants in the past. For example, if you have never received an STTF grant, you are eligible for 7 points. If you have received one, you cannot receive those 7 points. If your application includes new U.S. dual registered apprenticeships, and for apprentices, you will receive 5 points. If your company employs less than 100 individuals, you will receive 5 points. If you have a strategy to recruit those individuals from targeted populations that I mentioned earlier, and those would be folks that with disabilities, veterans, etc. If you have a strategy, returning citizens, if you have a strategy to recruit those types of individuals, then you can receive up to 5 points. And then that strategy, you need to give it a couple of paragraphs in your narrative in your application that you have a strategy. I can tell you that if you say that you have one, you will be asked, if you are awarded a grant, to talk about how that strategy either worked or failed at the end of the grant period. So please know that will happen. If you have had a past grant, there's 5 points that you'll receive on a point scale, and that's my next slide. So I'll skip that for just a moment. If you have an application that's part of an industry-led collaborative, you can get 4 points for that on your application. So you can have an individual application to train a number of people, and then you can be part of an industry-led collaborative that maybe you're working with 4 or 5 companies. We do that in the thumb with the Gemini Group, for example, where they have 4 or 5 independent companies that they do specific training for 2 or 3 individuals from every company, and you put that together. They've got 15 folks, and a training provider will come in for those 15 people. So that's a good example of an industry-led collaborative. If you're part of one of those, you'll get 4 points. And if you are a rising tide community within our region, and I can tell you the only rising tide community that we have that was awarded rising tide community status is Sandusky in Sanilac County. So other than companies from Sandusky, none of our other companies will be eligible for the Rising Tide Community 4 points. So if you begin to look at the scoring criteria, you can see that if you've had a grant in the past and you don't have apprenticeships, and you have over 100 individuals, and you're without a strategy to recruit people from a targeted population, there's a lot of points that you're unable to even access of that 100 points. And if you've had a grant in the past, this is the system they're going to use. If you've had a grant between October 15th and September 30th of 17, they're going to go back and take a look to see, did you utilize 80 to 100% of the grant funds? You can receive 5 points. Now what they're going to go back and look at, what was your original award and how much did you end up spending. And they're going to award points based on that. Not if you made a modification. It'll be the original award and the total amount that was spent by the companies. So that's where the 5 points will be coming from. Oops, I think I'm going the wrong way here. So as we begin to look at that, when we look at the rationale for 35 points, we want to make sure that we assist companies so that their rationale is extremely solid. And when you begin to look at your rationale, there's really 3 steps in it. We need to make sure that you have an introductory statement, because you need to assume that no one knows who your company is, because you're going to have folks from the Workforce Development Agency in Lansing that are going to be reading every one of these proposals that are coming in from around the state. So they want to know who your company is, what do you do, how do you impact the community, how many folks are working for you, those kinds of things to explain who you are. Then they also want to know, what type of business needs do you have? What's your business case for asking for some funds to skill and upskill some of your individuals, and how is that going to help your company? So, what's your business need? What are the needs of your company? And then the very last of that, at the end, an explanation that ties back to that need as to how will the trainings that you're asking for help to satisfy the need that your business has. So basically that's what they're looking for in a rationale. So we will work with you to make sure that it flows right, and we try to help you cover all the bases. We can't write it for you because you're the only one that really knows your company. We're going to come in as business service representatives from GST Michigan Works, and we're going to conduct a fact-finding so that we can understand what you're asking for and what your business need is, etc., so we can help you to craft your rationale. And we've been pretty good at that, by the way. I mean, we helped companies get over 1.1 million last year. For those of you that are new, and even our companies that have had grants in the past, there is no grant request cap. It must be, training has to be short-term in duration, 3 to 6 months. But as a reference, in the past statewide, since 2014, the average has been right about $34,000 per award. So the bulk of the money is not being awarded to General Motors, Ford and Chrysler, etc. In fact, since 2014, only 173 awards of over 1,400 have gone to employers with 500 or more employees. The bulk of the awards, over 700, have gone to employers with less than 100 employees, and around 537 to those with between 100 and 500 employees. I would encourage you, if you're new, to visit michigan.gov/STTF. I'm going to click on the site. It's going to take us to the State of Michigan's webpage. You're going to see where I got some of the information that I just presented to you. But you can go back, you can see the impact stories, you can see all the companies since 2014. If you were to go here and click on any of these dashboards, it will show you every company that was awarded money. And there's a lot of information in there. One of the other things that you can do, and I was unable to, I do these normally live, and I pass out the program overview, fact sheet, and frequently asked questions. So if you do go to this site, you can simply click on program overview, and you can download it and print it. And it gives you more information in writing about the Skilled Trades Training Fund. So I would encourage you to visit the state's webpage to get a little bit more information. And again, that's at, let's see if I can get back to my PowerPoint. Maybe not. That's what happens when you do these things live. Let's see, current slide, where are we at? Where did we go? There we go, we're back. So I would encourage you to go back to michigan.gov/STTF, and there's a lot of good information there as well. Again, the application period is Monday, September 18th. It's this coming Monday. We'll accept applications through October 6th at 5 p.m. And that's October 6th as it's date stamped on your email to your business service representative that you're working with. Then we will be submitting all of those applications to the state of Michigan, and you'll see all the correspondence. Whoever you name in your application as the contact person, anytime I send anything to the state of Michigan, you will be CC'd. You will see everything they see. The Workforce Development Agency, or TIA, will review the applications, competitively score them until the funds are exhausted. What they do, however, is that when they find, and a number of them they feel are equal in merit, they will take a look at whether or not you're a previous award recipient, the amount of the request, and what the state considers their return on investment for investing the money in your company, as well as the type and value of the credential that you're having people trained in, so that if a person was laid off by you, for example, how does that credential or that training reward, what would be the value to other employers, and encourage them to hire that individual. They also take a close look at the distribution throughout the regions throughout the state of Michigan. So they work hard to make sure that companies throughout the state are represented and all the regions are represented and funded in somewhat of an equal manner. Please know, however, that we get notified in writing. We don't get told why a grant application is not awarded. What we find out is who was awarded, and then we find out who has been placed in the queue awaiting additional funds. So please know there's a limited amount of funds, and they do anticipate greater demand than there is a supply of money. Not all companies are going to be funded, and every once in a while, it's happened, well, I'll say probably about 20% of the time, at least in our region, I'll get a contact by the Workforce Development Agency, and they're running low on funds, but they may like your proposal, and it may be for $75,000, but maybe they only have $45,000 to award. So they will contact me to talk with you to see whether or not could you utilize $45,000 in place of that $75,000. And then we can look at how can we reduce your grant request and utilize those dollars. And that's happened a number of times, just so that you know that or are aware of that. To obtain an application, we changed this actually today. What's going to happen is that our business service representatives are required by the Act to perform a fact-finding. And once they perform a fact-finding and meet with you, they'll come back to the office and they will be sending you the application directly. And we're going to take me out of the process. I will be the one that will submit your application to the state of Michigan through our business service reps. However, to receive an application, they will be the ones that will be sending you the application and working with you directly to get it filled out and completed and hopefully funded. I, however, as a business service manager, I'll be coordinating the processes to make that happen. I'm going to take a 5-second break here in just a second and have some more water. Generally, when I do these sessions, there are 2 or 3, some of them I did 2 weeks ago, and I talk about what's the planning prior to receiving your application, which can come out as early as Monday. What I would say to you is that make sure, and this is a snapshot of the training plan, and when the companies, the things that take the most time from any company is, first of all, to determine who, let me get one of my pointers here, who within your company, and who is it that you believe needs to be trained. These would be the classes, for example. So what's the name of the training provider, when can it be, and when can it be obtained? So you're going to need to talk to your training providers, find out when is it, let's say it's welding, for example, could be any class, but when will that training be provided to your employees? So this is the real footwork that needs to be done by companies in addition to writing the rationale. It's really the training plan, identifying the folks in your company that need to be trained by name, and what are the kinds of training, who's going to provide it, and when's it going to take place. Over to the right, that's for folks with apprenticeships, and we'll work with those companies. And no one on the line mentioned they had those, so I won't go through that. But this is where the real time takes place. So that's one place that you can really get ahead of the curve a little bit. I guess it may have to take place over the weekend given how quickly we're coming upon it. On the bottom of this same spreadsheet is work-based learning or on-the-job training for persons that you plan to hire and you're speculating and forecasting. So what you would be doing at this juncture would be identifying in this column the job title, because obviously you do not know who that individual is, because we're forecasting them. Maybe they're going to plan on hiring 10 people between January and March, and you're going to onboard some folks, maybe 3 a month. So when you do hire that person, this is where on the 20th of the month we're asking for the names. So you would fill these out, just send this. We'll work with you on how that happens, but we just have you rename the spreadsheet, fill the names in, and they get sent to your BSR, who sends them to me, and I send them to the state. So all we're really looking for is the job title and the entry level wage, and this changes all the time sometimes. So this is just a forecast, and we know that, but it does tell us over here there will be, with all the formulas, it'll tell us how much you're going to be asking for the Skill Trades Training Fund for the state to help reimburse. So this is where the dollar amount of your request is going to come from. It's going to come right out of the training plan spreadsheet. And our business service rep will work with you to identify that. Again, the application process, we need to have you contact one of our business service reps to conduct a fact-finding. And what we do during a fact-finding is that we also have other funds that are federal funds and that we know about, that we can sit down and talk to you about, that maybe we already have funds that we could help allocate, and you would not necessarily need to fill out or apply for a Skill Trades Training Fund, and maybe we have those funds. Maybe we can identify other funding streams, and we could blend those along with the Skill Trades Training Fund. And we want to make sure that the training is going to meet your, the request is going to meet your needs. And there may be other solutions as well that we're aware of that you're not at this point. Application's a 3-step process. You're going to be asked to fill in 3 sections. You have to fill out the training plan, and then it gets reviewed and awarded. This is an example of an example of the application, the first section, and this is all done online. All we're looking for is employer information. Then you're going to be asked to give us information about the training, the training and the training provider. It's pretty easy, pretty quick. A lot of yes, no's. How many people do you intend to hire, permanent, full-time, etc. Then you're going to be asked, what is your contribution as an employer to the training? If you have people in training, and you're going to be asked, how do you calculate it? But what are the wages that you calculate that would be considered wages in training? And you can use those as in-kind, and that's where your in-kind contribution, which is worth up to 20 points of this application, come into place. What would be your cost to you as an employer to pay for travel and lodging and meals? Any additional costs, maybe cost of training your facility. Another thing would be if you have bought equipment. Could be new equipment, could be equipment that you've had that you're going to have people trained on. As long as you depreciate that equipment over a 20 to 30 year period, you could use 1/20th of that equipment, and that can also be identified and utilized as part of your employer contribution towards the training. Doesn't necessarily have to be cash. Also, and they're going to ask you how you derived it, what is your loss of productivity while people are in training? So those are all costs that employers incur while folks are in training. This is the part where you're identifying who the training providers are. This is the second part, and this expands, so as you begin to type it, it's an expandable document. This is where you're going to be asked, provide a brief description of your need. What is your business rationale? We talked about that a little while ago. And also explain why the training is needed and how it satisfies the training need that your company has. There's a third part that we fill out as a Michigan Works. I'm sorry, the certification is simply an individual with your company that's certifying the above information is accurate. And then when this application comes into us, we work with this. We figure out our Michigan Works in-kind information. So we'll fill out the Part 4 and we'll submit it to the state of Michigan. I end up being the signatory at the bottom of all the applications for Region 6. So this is a snapshot of what the application looks like. It's simply an online application. If in fact you are funded, then you will be, we get informed by the state of Michigan, then we will inform you that you were funded. We have a 2-page training agreement between us as GST Michigan Works and you as an employer. And we simply ask that you sign it, I sign it, we keep it on file, and it's a simple agreement that's really a reiteration of the terms of the STTF funding. Then we start the training cycle. As far as payment back to you, it's all on a reimbursed basis. We work with you to submit all the documentation that's required, and we submit that to the state. The state reimburses us, and we reimburse you. For classroom training payments, it's pretty simple. What we have to have upon the completion of classroom training is simply to have you update the training plan, and that training plan, simply over to the right on the training plan, there's wages at the completion of training. So we just ask you, it could be the same, could be higher. Just give us those wages. Tell us send us a copy of the certificate that was issued and an invoice from the training provider. So if we have a class that cost you $600 and there was 10 people in it, then we would have that, the invoices, the certificates, and that's the documentation we have to send to the state to get you reimbursed. The Workforce Development Agency reviews that verification, and then the funding's awarded to us through a purchase order, and then we issue the check to you and we hand deliver it. The on-the-job training payments are a little different in that there's a 90-day retention period. I went over that earlier, that you would receive one check for all of your on-the-job training, work-based learning experiences at one time, and that's 90 days after the completion of the very last one. However, one of the things that we have to have is we have to have payroll documentation for anyone on an on-the-job training agreement, and that would be a snapshot of their first pay period, which would show the total wages on that first pay period would be the pay for that pay period, because they would be brand new, and then a snapshot of the very last pay period at the end of the 90 days. And if it's not included on the very first pay period, we have to have a snapshot from your payroll of their hire date. So those are the 3 things that we have to submit to the state. Plus there's other documents we collect, but those are the only documents that go to the state of Michigan. So for an OJT reimbursement, for example, and this is Betty. Betty was hired on December 1st. She made $14 an hour. She had a training plan for 120 hours. So her total wages would be $1,680. OJT reimbursement through the Skilled Trades Training Fund, unlike the rest of our programs, is at 100%. Normally it's 50%. This is at 100%. So Betty would have completed her on-the-job training of 120 hours on December 21st if everything went right. 90 days later would be March 21st. If she's still employed with the company, you would receive 100% reimbursement because Betty reached the 90-day retention period. If Betty does not reach the 90-day retention period but has completed her training part of the OJT, which would have been on December 21st, but did not reach 90 days, but she lasted 30 days after retention, you would receive 50% of the $1,500, for example. If she's only there for 60 days or less than 90, you would get 75% of the $1,500. And if she is there for 90 days or longer, obviously you would get the 100% reimbursement. For classroom training, a little different than on-the-job wage reimbursement, on-the-job training wage reimbursement. We have to have your current training plan with updated wage information, the training invoices, and the certificates of completion. This slide right here is actually a duplication of what I've already talked about. So again, applications are becoming, actually they're becoming available today. The state sent us today the applications. So any of those companies that we have performed fact findings with in the past, some of our business service reps are actually sending out applications today. They cannot be turned into us any earlier than Monday, and I doubt anybody's going to do that. However, if you have not scheduled a fact finding, and I asked our administrative assistant, Cindy Thornway, to send everybody a communication that even prior to this webinar to contact us, and maybe we could have you contacted by one of our business service reps to actually already start a fact finding. So I know some of you have already done that. Those of you that haven't, that want to pursue the Skill Trades Training Fund, I'm going to have some numbers in a moment that you can call to schedule a fact finding as soon as possible, as early next week as possible. However, you could also start to look at what would be the training that you're looking, identify who are the people in your company that need to be trained, what are those trainings, and who would provide it and when, because that's really the most difficult part. That and forecasting over the next 3 to 4 months between mid-November and March, do we forecast hiring new employees, and what would those job titles be? So that's the things that, those are the things that you can work on even before receiving an application, because those are the things that you're going to be asked in an application. I'm not sure how many folks I've killed with PowerPoint today, but for those of you that are still alive, depending upon what county you are in, these are the folks that you need to contact to set up a fact finding if you haven't already. So in Genesee County, it's Cindy Thornway, and I'm going to leave this screen up for a moment. I'm going to try to enlarge it a little bit. And obviously that's Cindy, and we have 6 different business service reps here in Genesee County, and Cindy will make sure that we get a fact finding scheduled with one of our business service reps. If you already have a relationship with one of our business service reps and have not talked to them, then just let Cindy know, here's, Lisa Hairston's my business service rep, and I need her to call me to schedule a fact finding, etc. In Shiawassee County, you should be calling Ty Kraus. And in Lapeer County, it's Derek Chisholm. Tuscola County, it's Sheila Rock. Huron County, it is Kyle Pine. And in Sanilac County, it will be Eldon Preston. If you're unable to reach any of the BSPs listed here, please call Cindy. And Cindy will let me know, and I'll look into why we can't get a hold of one of our business service reps. If you are a company in Lapeer County, we've just gone through a phone overhaul, and within the next week or so, Derek Chisholm's extension is going to go from a 2-digit to a 3-digit. Today, it's a 2-digit, so his extension is 21. If that doesn't work, it will soon be 621, so it could be either one of those, and that's why that is. Derek has a 21 or a 621. Again, the application period is September 18th through September 18th through October 6th. And to ensure your application is accurate and competitive, please work with your business service rep. Don't wait until 5 p.m. on October 6th, because if we need to adjust it, we're out of time. What I would say to you is work with them, talk to them Communicate weekly as you're moving through the application. If you have any questions, call, ask them. If they don't have the answer, they're going to ask me. If I don't have the answer, I will get it from the state of Michigan before you complete your application. And what we really want to do is work with you 3 or 4 times, because it's really extraordinary that an application gets submitted. It's perfect the first time. It normally takes us working with our businesses 2 or 3 times back and forth with an application. So it normally takes at least 2 weeks. So I just want you to know that. And our deadline is 3 weeks from now. October 6th is going to fly up on us. So now, if I have not killed everybody with, by PowerPoint, I cannot see, it's interesting in chat right here, for some reason. Oh, there it comes. Okay, I was having trouble finding it. Let me go back and look at the questions. Is there a call-in number for audio? I missed that one. There was. I had that on the first slide. And it should have also been on, I know it was on when you registered, it was on that, but it's a little call there, so hopefully we can get a hold of Scott. And somebody might, thank you, Kimberly, for letting him know. I'm just finally getting through these. Okay, I had a question. Can I re-explain what is required for a business to be considered a qualified training provider? A business can have anyone, they can select anyone that they feel is the appropriate person as a training provider. So I'm going to go back to training providers. Sorry for this, I'm not sure exactly where it was, but it was at the front of the presentation. But basically, to be a training provider, there is very few exclusions. A company can utilize anyone as a training provider that they believe is the most appropriate for their company. The only thing that really is restrictive, if we're looking at a training provider and they, well, that's not even true. Okay, I had a different thought in my head, I'm sorry. The only training that really is of question is businesses doing their own training. And if they are going to do their own training, it has to be, and we have to be able to show the readers that it's exclusive in nature and the reason that it's exclusive, or yes, exclusive in nature. So if this question was coming from a business that only does training, the training is selected by the company that's writing the application. Training, if you're a training provider, you can't write an application to do training for other companies. I don't know if that, hopefully that answered it. English as a second language, a little more detail on that. Good question. And that would be that it couldn't simply, if there was a 30 or 40 hour class as Spanish as a second language, or English as a second language, it's going to be English as a second language, so we would be talking about a company. We had a couple of examples. For example, last year we had 2 companies that were looking to train 1 or 2 of their folks in Spanish because they had Spanish-speaking communities that they dealt with, but they didn't have folks that spoke, enough people that spoke Spanish in their workforce. So we couldn't fund that last year. We can fund it this year. We have a worldwide company in Owasso, for example, and they also would have liked to have been able to have trained some folks in some foreign languages because they deal with multiple countries. Last year that was not fundable. This year it is. I would say to you, if that class, that training is 30 to 45 hours or more, it's probably going to be funded. It simply would be that we would need to make the case in your narrative of your application, the reason that you need to have some folks trained in English as a second language, or could even be Spanish as a second language. But we'll make that case in your application. Are there any other questions or anything that I could highlight or try to answer today, if everyone's still awake? I'm going to take you to the slide that has the contact information. Okay. Will you get a copy of this presentation? Okay, Vicki. It's my intention to work with our marketing person on Monday morning, and this is going to go up on our webpage. We'll make sure that you can have a copy of it. Hopefully, at the same time, it'll be at our webpage, and so will this presentation. But we'll make sure, even if it's not at the webpage, I'll make sure that Cindy Thornway, she works right out of this office, and she's a wonderful administrative assistant that works here. That's a highly trained person, and she's not going anywhere for a long time. We'll make sure that Cindy sends you a copy if we don't get this up to the webpage, and that is www.gstmiworks.org. Otherwise, does anyone else have any questions? Either put it in the chat or go ahead and ask it. All right, well, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy July and September, especially sitting through a presentation like this on an 80-degree day in September. I would much rather be out golfing or camping or doing something otherwise. But thank you so much for attending, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact any of the business service professionals that are listed on the screen right now, and I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. Thank you for attending.